Welcome to our STS-61 post-launch news conference. Our appearance this morning are from your left, Lauren Shriver, Technical Assistant to the Director of Space Shuttle Operations, and Robert B. Seek, KSC Launch Director. And we'll start off with Mr. Shriver.
Thank you. Well, in terms of the way launches go, this was absolutely outstanding. And from a point of view of the Space Shuttle program, we had really absolutely nothing to worry about almost all morning. Very straightforward launch. The winds died down early in the period and stayed down. Tickled a little bit at the tail end as we went through the final stages of the count, but remained very low. And the rest count was surprisingly quiet. Bob will probably say a few more words about that. But from the point of view of the shuttle program, also, of course, a very great relief to have this mission on orbit now and able to begin the process of rendezvousing with HST and then performing the 5 EVAs to do all the corrections to the guidance system and to the observing system on board the telescope. And it's probably especially meaningful for me since I was one of the last people to see HST some 330 miles above the Earth. It'll be nice to have humans be able to go and visit it again and do the necessary corrections to back up to full speed.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, good morning, and it is a good morning, particularly for the team. They were rewarded for all their work with the launch count. It was very crisp and it was very uneventful. We had no issues with the flight hardware to work, and unlike yesterday, no weather issues to work. Between our back-to-back launch counts, the only items that we had to deal with from a non-standard work standpoint was the adjustment of one of our loading valves in the liquid oxygen system in our facility and an elevator switch. Other than that, all of the hardware performed just flawlessly and of course supported launch today. These two launch attempts end really a great year for not only the launch team but the whole processing team. If you keep score of launches and launch attempts and the performance of the mission, they really did a super job. And of course, it's not over yet. We're getting Discovery ready to roll out to support the STS-60 mission first thing next year, and we've got work to do on Columbia, and it'll be right behind that one. But in the meantime, the team is going to watch this particular mission with a lot of interest and, of course, a lot of pride.
Let's move on to questions. Wait for the mic and give your name and affiliation, please. Reg.
Colonel, Space Technology International. Do you lose anything at all in terms of the rendezvous and docking with the telescope by going a day late?
No, we don't. And the adjustment there came from the difference in launch time and launch beginning of the launch period. By adjusting that beginning, we get into the same general relationship with the telescope. Our performance was essentially the same. We'll have the same prop budgets and things basically that we would have had yesterday.
Jim Backey.
Jim Backey, Florida State for Lauren. Could you give us your perspective on whether you think this is a make-or-break mission for NASA? And could you talk about maybe how the mission management team is going to maybe work differently, or is it going to work differently during this mission because of all the attention?
Well, I know there's been a lot of discussion about this being a make-or-break mission for NASA. I think every mission has its merits and deserves a lot of publicity. This mission is higher profile than other missions. It's designed to bring a pretty expensive telescope back up to the level of capability that it was originally. The concept was of putting it there had in the first place. As to call it make or break, though, I guess I personally don't carry it that far. I think that manned space program stands on its own merits. The accomplishments in the past are, in their own way, every bit as important as fixing this telescope is. And it just seems to me like there's maybe been a little bit overdone on that aspect. But it is important these days to be able to carry through and to do things as you've designed them, because operating manned spacecraft is a lot more expensive these days than it was in the past, and so you need to try to do everything to the highest level of success we can, and I think we'll do all right on the mission.
Did you have a thought with Mike?
Yeah, the MMT. Is the MMT going to work any differently because of this?
Well, the MMT, I think, is laid out to work the same way. We'll have the daily discussions and be ready to respond to real-time off-nominal situations. There's the mission director is involved, of course, in the daily operation of the mission, and we'll be able to make inputs to that process. But basically, it's laid out to operate the same as it does for all missions.
Joe Walsh and then Jim Slade, Chrissy, please.
Joe Walsh, Regional Broadcasting. A question for Mr. Shriver. Talking about make or break, let's narrow it down a little bit. There are several goals that have been set out for this mission in the repair of the Hubble Space Telescope. What would you consider to be success of this mission? How many of these goals would have to be accomplished for NASA to say it's been a success?
Well, there's a list of primary things that they want to do. I think something that's been probably a little bit overlooked in the emphasis on fixing the optical part of the telescope is the fact that they're currently running on 3 of the rate gyro units, and normally in a full complement there would be 6, and it takes 3 to do normal science with the telescope. So I think replacing bringing the RMUs back up to a full complement would be a high priority. And the solar arrays, of course, were a high priority. They were an item that was scheduled or desired to be changed out as quickly as possible anyway, to try to get rid of some of the terminator jitter that goes through every time it goes from light to dark or vice versa. And certainly correcting the optics. The wide field planetary camera is sort of the next in the series. And I know a lot of people would like to see that camera fixed, because that sort of is the workhorse of the telescope in terms of visual things that the public can see and that scientists use to document what they're trying to explain. And beyond that, everything else I think is gravy. But that's just a personal opinion, and I think that we'll do a lot better than that.
Do you have a follow-on, Joe?
I do. What you really outlined are all the major tasks, but if you're not able to complete all those, let's say you only did one, fixing the gyroscopes, would you consider that a successful mission then?
Partially successful. The mission is successful from my point of view. Right now, we're launched and we're in orbit.
Jim?
Right now, today. But obviously, we've got more to do than that. And I have every confidence that we'll get it done.
Play to ABC, just some trash sweep up here. Exactly what time did you launch, Bob? Where was Hubble at that point, and is it safely buttoned up now? What's its current situation?
Well, the time was 0.019 seconds later than the beginning of the window, and how that relates to where Hubble is.
Well, let's see, phasing angle at the beginning of the period was supposed to be around 81 degrees, I think, or so. So right on time, though. Everything is set up from the liftoff time through the Ohms 2 burn, and then all the phasing burns that you go through after that en route to rendezvous.
Telescope, is its lid closed now? Have you heard?
Not yet. I don't think they're closed yet.
Let's take one more question here before we go to Goddard. Steve?
Stephen Young, Astronomy Now magazine, and from Lauren Shriver. I wonder whether you had any words of advice or encouragement for the crew before they left based on your own experience working the telescope.
Well, I guess I just told them, I saw them here at TCDT, and I told them it's a real big telescope. It's very brightly colored when you're on orbit. It's easy to see, so you shouldn't miss it. And try to do all those good things about that we have in mind to fix it up and leave it in better shape than it is now.
Let's go to Goddard for questions.
Yes, this is A.R. Hogan, Writers Plus newsroom and Prince George Journal. A couple of questions. Will the half-hour earlier launch move up all mission events by roughly that amount, or will you be following the original schedule and just make up that lost half hour? And there are two other questions, please.
Well, everything is laid out on a mission elapsed time from the liftoff time, so you'll have to carry the adjustment through the entire mission.
Okay, and when exactly will Hubble's observations end, and was there any particularly happy astronomer who got to make a last-minute observation based on this one-day delay that would have otherwise not happened, or do you know that? And I have one last question.
I don't know the answer to that.
One more question there. Aaron.
Okay, and I believe the last question from Goddard, yes, is exactly how does the shutdown of Hubble happen? Does somebody at KSC say, okay, Goddard, shut this down now, or do they just see, well, you're safely in orbit and we can shut it off? Can you describe the protocol or process of exactly how that works, please?
Well, the terminology shutting it down never really happens completely. The telescope will be powered up even when we grapple it and berth it in the payload bay, and then it has orbiter power applied to it through an umbilical. Things are selectively powered down or off, or power is isolated from certain things as portions of the EVA are done, and then after each particular EVA, after the hardware is replaced, then at least there's a power check done on equipment to make sure that the EVA and the replacement, the hardware that was replaced, is at least able to receive power. So it's a continuous process of juggling what's turned on and off to isolate the particular item for that day's activity, while other things still have power applied to them.
That wrap got it? Oh, okay, we're back here at KSC. Gentleman row.
Rick Feinberg, Sky and Telescope. A question for Bob. How do things look as far as the fuel supply on board the orbiter now after the burn?
Well, you probably ought to ask Houston's flight at the end of the shift briefing. It was on the timeline, the consumables. They'll have the numbers for it.
You have a question,
Todd Halverson, Florida Today for Bob. You have a pretty ambitious year ahead of you next year. I believe you have 9 launches tentatively scheduled, and at the same time you're facing declining budgets. I'm wondering if you can give us a glimpse at how that all is going to wash out next year and how you anticipate going about the job of getting all those missions off.
Well, we signed up to the program manifest with every intention to meet it, and that's with the budget overlay that was given us. In the past year, when we look at our processing record, there's been a number of efficiencies that we've noted in the metrics that management watches. The processing time and the work content to get a vehicle through the orbiter processing facilities, for instance, the amount of overtime we've expended. All of this says that our process has matured to the point that we're comfortable with the skills that we've signed up to. We don't know what additional, if the budget hits, that we may receive. We have indicated that should that occur, the first thing that'll go, obviously, will be the skill, because we won't sacrifice the quality of the hardware. But at this point, we think we can make it.
Follow that real quick. How much less money will you have to work with next year And how confident are you that you can actually get all 9 missions in light of the fact that you've only done that once in the entire shuttle program?
Well, the 9 missions, the program is, the manifest that we're currently working under has us 8 missions in the calendar year. So that's really what's on the plate for us now. And like our cuts, as it were, we already negotiated those last year before the budget cycle and this fiscal year began in October. And that, again, is some 3 to 5% less than it was the previous year. And if that's all we have to deal with, we're set up to do that. If there's more, then obviously we'll probably have to make an adjustment, and that would be to the schedule.
Irene Brown, then Dan Billum.
Irene Brown, CPI, for Lauren Shriver. When you and your crew were launched to deploy the Hubble, there was so much attention and high hopes and a sense of relief that the telescope was going to be put in orbit after 10 years. Did you ever think that it would develop problems and the difficulties that it has?
No, we didn't know that the spherical aberration existed at the time that we launched it. I think that the telescope in reality has been an outstanding instrument, even with spherical aberration. There are some people around who are not sure why we want to go fix it in the first place, because it has been really quite an outstanding telescope, even with that problem. There's been a lot of discoveries made that almost weekly you can read a new article or a new item about observations that have been made over the last 3.5 years. It took a little bit of refinement of computer processing techniques to help that out. The thing that's missing is being able to see, how to put this, the older part of the universe, to get back to the 10 to 12 billion light years in the past and see what exists out there. And it's the reason for the fix to both the wide field planetary camera and the COSTAR instrument for the rest of the telescope, is to be able to recoup that capability and look on back a little bit further into the age of the universe.
Dan.
But we didn't know that at the time that it happened.
Dan Billow from WESH-TV. Lauren, could you kind of contrast your feelings about this launch as compared with any other launch, if any? In other words, most of the time when you launch, that's the big hurdle, and they're going to go up and deploy a satellite, or they're going to do experiments in the space lab, and there's little or no doubt that they're going to go up there and do what they're going to do. Do you feel differently now on this launch morning than you normally feel on right after a successful launch in terms of looking at the mission ahead?
I'm very excited about having gotten the launch done. As Bob said, it was a absolutely picture-perfect launch in terms of no hardware problems, and everybody was ready to go. It's just a big relief when you get to main engine cutoff that, hey, we did it again, and there it is. This one, of course, has another 6 or 7 or 8 days of really high-intensity effort. We've got a couple of days of equipment checkout, items that are critical to the success of the mission, the RMS and the suits, for example, in the next couple of days. And then you've got the rendezvous go through. Rendezvous have been done before. I suppose you could call them almost routine, but a rendezvous in space is never routine. This one has its uniqueness, and that's going to happen for success of the mission. And then each of the EVAs on the next succeeding 5 days are all critical for replacing the identified components for that mission. Altogether, of course, if all that works out, then the telescope is, you probably all recall back before we launched 31 to deploy the telescope, there was a lot of talk about what this telescope would be able to do, its original design. And when we get it all done here, and if it gets all done, then we'll be back to that capability. So, yeah, this is probably a little bit different than some of the other missions where we we're not deploying everything, or there's not a lot of visibility, and really critical manual things being done that are out of the ordinary for the program, even though we've done satellite rescues before and that sort of thing. Just pretty intricate tasks involved on these EUs.
Shreesh Date.
Yeah, Shreesh Date with the Orlando Sentinel for Lauren Shriver. Would there have been any advantage to launching, say, in the middle of the window in terms of propellant margin, and was there given any thought to that?
Most of the advantage between the beginning of the window and later on in the window would come from ascent performance. The targets for MECO, all those would have remained the same the day's launch throughout the entire window. So the advantage of delaying for the middle of the window would have been pretty much in terms of ascent performance, and the OMS load and the RCS load are full loads on this mission anyway, so from the main engine cutoff point from there on, I think we would be in basically the same situation regardless.
John.
I understand one of the main concern is that the solar array cannot be folded down, be folded back because they are too old. But in that case, will it be possible to change them? And if yes, will it be possible to bring back the old one to Earth?
Bring back what?
Solar array.
The
Back
old
to-
solar
back to
arrays?
Earth.
Well, the intent is to bring them back. The only reason they would not bring them back is if for some reason we can't get them rolled back up into you know, the envelope that fits back into the carrier.
Then, anyway, if they
Oh
come
yes,
back.
yes,
Yeah.
we can still change them, and there are plans, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot more as to what to do with the solar array that can't be folded up.
We have time for one or two more questions. I see any hands out there? If not, let's call this a wrap. Thank you very much for coming.